One of my very first experiences inside a church was when I was pretty young. Some distant cousins of mine invited me and my nephew to an all-nighter at their church, and it was awesome. I remember having a blast. It was so much fun. We did a scavenger hunt throughout the whole city. It felt like we explored the whole world. I'm talking 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. We stayed up all the way till the sun came up. My cousin pulled me aside and said, "You need to get saved." And I didn't really know what that meant. But she assured me that it was the only way that I was going to make it to heaven. And me being 12, 13, I forget how young I was, probably about 13. Me being young, I had no idea. But, I was at the church and I wasn't going to say no. So she took me away from where everybody was and took me to the altar. And she prayed over me. And she prayed a prayer, and I repeated it almost like I was taking vows. And it felt so awesome. I felt so important. I was a young, impressionable kid. I remember leaving the altar and going back where everybody was. As I entered the room, I shouted, "Hallelujah!" And my nephew just ripped on me. Just thought I was the nerdiest. Just like he just couldn't believe that I would shout hallelujah. And I felt really dumb. When I got home that next day, I told my mother what had happened and how I got saved. And she flipped out. I didn't really understand why, but it wasn't her thing, being in a church and saying prayers and doing that whole church thing with your hands in the air and crying out to the Lord. It just wasn't her thing. I wasn't raised like that at all. And she freaked out at the fact that they would take me to the altar and pray over me like that and try to save me. And I remember it became sort of an issue between her and her sister, my aunt, whose kids I went to the all-nighter with. And then my buddy, my very best friend, it was through all of middle school and high school, he and I were just like two peas in a pod. It was me and him going everywhere, getting into trouble, doing everything, riding our bikes. I remember riding my bike with him around the city, and I just felt so drawn into all the different churches that were throughout the city. There's tons of churches in my city, and I felt so drawn as we would ride our bikes. I would look at them and I'd say, "Hey man, let's stop here. Let's look in the windows. Let's see if the door's open. Let's go in." I just wanted to get in it, and he just ripped on me and got so just fed up with it and just called me all kinds of names. You know how teenage boys are. "Gay, bro. You're a fag, dude," just kind of doing stuff like that. "Queer," like being teenage boys, just that whole kind of thing when you really start digging into each other and ripping on each other. And I felt so like, man, my nephew made fun of me for shouting hallelujah. My mom fought with her family about it. And now my best friend is ragging on me because I'm trying to get closer to something that I felt. I felt something so powerful, and at every turn, it was like nobody wanted me, like there was a force trying to stop me from getting to it. And as it would happen, I gave up, and my teens continued on, got into partying, got into drugs, got into, doing all kinds of things that all parents wish their kids just wouldn't do. Yeah, nobody told me how the devil works. Nobody told me. I was never raised in a church to know what the liar is, what the great deceiver is, and how the sole purpose of the devil is to disrupt that relationship that we're supposed to have with God. Nobody told me that. All I knew is I felt something amazing at a random church all-nighter that I went to, and at every turn that amazing feeling was snuffed. For the better part of 2 decades, I didn't have God in my life. I was completely and utterly in darkness. And I got so full of myself and so full of my own beliefs and so full of my opinions and so full of all the wrong things. And if you continue watching all the videos here at the Book of Wolf, you'll see the connection here. You'll see the thread that's woven through each one of my little stories. We've got to deal with these internal energies that are trying to lure us in this direction or that direction. My prayer is that your heart and your mind will start to open up a little bit more and you'll draw closer to God. And I thank you so much for stopping in at the Book of Wolf. God bless you.